नहमदु व नसल्ली अला रसूलिल करीम अम्मा बाद बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम अस्सलामु अलैकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू Salika Salikin, welcome to this pioneering edition, this first edition of the Friends of Allah podcast, right? Now, I don't mean this in tongue in cheek, facetiously, jokingly, whatsoever. I mean this seriously. Um, Joining, and you'll see this in the course of this conversation, because joining me is a very special guest, Mr. Shaykh Ahmed Shiwani DB. And so the purpose of this podcast, of this podcast series, is to talk to the Mashayikh of the Khalifa of our Shaykh, to understand their journey, like what led them, what were the trials, the tribulations, the ups, the downs, what were some of the lessons that we can learn from these friends of Allah, these Khalifa of our beloved Shaykh, right? And through that, improve our lives, right? Try to emulate them so that we may attain unto um, their stations and the fruits that Allah gifts them, right? After all, what is the purpose in life? To get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these khulafa, these mashayikh, you may not be able to tell, and I definitely was able to tell when I met Ahmed Bhai the first time. But I think if we have the luck, and this is I'm flattered and honored to bring these stories to you. But I think if you have the luck to learn from them, to understand from them, to emulate them, to try to imbibe them in even the smallest way possible, I think we will benefit enormously. So, Sheikh Ahmed Damakatwali, thank you so much for joining us today, taking the time out from your busy textile tycoon business time, and also joining us over here. Just before this conversation, he was on his phone, just tapping away some more orders. But Alvaro, thank you for joining us. And like I said at the beginning of this conversation, the first time I spoke to you. So I'd seen you a couple of times at the Khanka, but the first time I really saw you was outside LUMS. It was Friday prayers. I was in one of the last stuff because I was late, and I was spotting you. Someone was like, "Hey, man, that guy. I was seeing this guy
Yeah,
somewhere." I was trying to place you, and you looked a bit different then also. Mashallah, still heavy
yeah,
set, but I think a bit longer hair you had, right?
yeah, I
And I've been seeing striking the LUMS type, and I think I just want to start
yeah,
on that. I want to start on that. In all seriousness, this thing that you didn't strike me the LUMS type, you know,
yeah,
and if we delve even a little bit deep into your life, mashallah, what comes across is a person who has been parts of the highest echelons of society, right? Whether we talk about your high school, whether your middle school, high school, if we talk about university, if we talk about your professional life working in almost MBB type consultancies, working in the premier industry in Pakistan, which is the textile industry, and then you setting out to set up your own business, right? So what we see is this arc of the of being part of the commanding heights of our society, right? But again, a shallow person like me seeing you for the first time doesn't make that connection, right? And we often hear our sheikh also talking about uh, maybe not directly comparable, but you know how these friends of Allah, these mashayikh, these khulafa, they don't come across to you as they are, right? You tend to underestimate them and so on and so forth. I know you're going to pull a modest this thing over there, but I just want to start on that. This this connection, this lack of connection between who you struck me as and you actually, mashallah, being at LUMS, and graduating with I think what a 3.8 GPA, 3.9.
somewhere
We're
around
beginning
there,
the
yeah.
session, Ahmed, so it's get ready for blushes, okay? So, but if you could just, yes, I just want to start in that,
Yeah,
LUMS. I think that was the
yeah,
second or third year you were there, right? So you were right there, smack in the middle of your university life. let's start with just a broad question. What was that like?
Before I answer that, I just wanna refer to something that because you've mentioned me in really beautiful words, and I honestly don't think I'm worthy of them. I think anything positively associated with me is through the barakat of my sheikh. So the only thing I will do is make the dua that Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq Raza Allah Ta'ala makes, is that may Allah make me how you perceive me to be. Uh, because I honestly don't think I'm worthy of these beautiful praises that you have put. But I think just to answer your question overall about uh, look, when I went to LUMS, that's actually when I started wearing shalwar kameez and I started wearing a topi and stuff. Like the way it happened is funny because like so before, like about one and a half year before I went to LUMS is when I took bath with Hazrat, and then
So this is when, sorry, 1.5 year before LUMS.
yeah, like one and a half year.
Okay.
So I was at the end of my O levels is when I actually met Hazrat. So this is when I was like 16ish, and then after a year or something of meeting Hazrat is when I took bath in his hands, and then उसके 1.5 साल बाद मैं लम्स गया था. But between that time, I had this like at some point, and I don't know where this point was, I had decided that, oh, I want to dress in the Sunnat way. So I want to wear shalwar kameez, I want to wear a topi, I want to keep my shalwar above my ankles. But it was really difficult for me to do it simply because I felt like, if I show up to my friends, or if I show up to like tuition, or if I show up to a gathering the next day wearing shalwar kameez like this, where like a day before I wasn't really, I was wearing normal clothes, as in just like Western attire, they would all feel, they'll all just be weirded out by what has
Who's
happened. And I
they?
just felt, sorry?
Though you mean like your friends, your previous life people,
Yeah,
or
like
just
yeah, I was like, I was afraid of how they would react because they'd say me dressed one way today and just completely different way tomorrow. So what I decided is, hey, when I go to Lums, I really won't know anyone there. So no one's really gonna know how I dress before I go to Lums. So the summer of when, like the last summer before I went to Lums is when I decided, okay, I'm gonna wear shalwar kameez and topi and the entire Sunnat attire. So like, it was a blessing in disguise in that sense. I didn't really know anyone, and so I could switch. And to be fair, I also felt out of place for the longest time. Like I was conscious about it.
the
I
only
was
culture
conscious
shock was
about
for you, basically, huh? In a way.
Yeah, it was a culture shock for me too because like I felt it was like an out of body experience. I would look at myself in the mirror and I'd be like, hey, who's this guy? Like, why?
Hmm.
I'm used to wearing like Ralph Lauren shirts and stuff, and now I'm wearing shalwar kameez
With your
and
collar up,
no,
actually, you
that
weren't
was
that
cool in
like
your
that.
age, Saad bhai. It wasn't cool in our age.
Look at this guy, still throwing shade, huh? You know, mashallah.
so so yeah, मतलब मुझे वो like it was really, I felt like a lot of the times I was more conscious about it than people were conscious about it. Like I'd feel more insecure about how I would dress
Because
as
I'm
compared to
sorry, I'm
how
interrupting because even and we come to which school, but your school friends were also probably in LUMS, right? So they were people.
only a few, like only a few, but most of the people that I was like properly friends with ended up going abroad or staying at IBA or
Acha,
whatever. So
in
they
my
weren't
time, if you're
exactly.
on it again, there were a lot of people who
Yeah.
went to LUMS. Acha, so
Yeah.
okay, fine. That was interesting. So it really was the sort of a clean break in a way, and
Yeah.
coming to a
Yeah.
new place maybe made it a bit easier for you, but still, obviously, it's not easier on you because yeah, it was still hard for you, as you're saying, right?
It was hard for me, and that's what I'm saying. I was really conscious about it, and I was wondering how people would react. I would feel even though they weren't behaving differently, I would feel as if they might be behaving differently just because I was dressed a certain way, and they might not be receptive. But I mean, credit goes to alums where it's due. I never felt too out of place. I never felt not accepted. because like the society there was so diverse. Like you had all kinds of people. So you had
Because you have a
people.
strong religious crowd over there also, right?
Yeah, yeah, we you did, and so that's why I didn't feel really out of place because there's other people there, um, and I think that just to as an extension it gives you like the it shows you the benefits of good sohbat is that if you're around people who are doing if who are dressing in a sunnat way, then you feel it feels easier to do. Like I think that's why Hazrat precious so much on having good sohbat, because you know if 10 people out of 11 are doing the right thing, then it's easier for the 11th person to do the right thing. And it's also the opposite. If it's like 10 people doing the wrong thing, then it's easier for the 11th person to do the wrong. I think उस वजह से for me to sort of accept myself and for others to accept me was easy, but I've always felt out of place. I think one thing that like just a practical tip that did help is oftentimes you feel as if when you're wearing shalwar kameez or you're wearing a topi and stuff, you look a bit shabby. So you know one thing that helps is like s-
Put on a
dressing
waistcoat,
in a
bro.
sunnah, yeah, like dressing in a sunnat way does not mean you dress in a
Hmm.
shabby way. It in fact it means the actual opposite. Like you should, because you're representing the dress, the attire of the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you should in fact dress even better. Like you should dress cleaner, you should dress crisper. Your clothes should always be ironed. You shouldn't wear
And
dirty
there's so much
clothes.
to go with it also, like the accessories and the rumal and
Yeah,
so I'm now in Saudi and we had a company event, and again
yeah,
because of Sheikh Saab's teaching I just dressed to the nines, you know. I didn't wear
yeah,
the pagri or the topi, but really, and everyone was proving it. Alhamdulillah,
yeah.
national pride also, religious and spiritual pride also, and Sheikh Saab bringing that definitely. So I think spot on. Wearing a shalwar kameez doesn't mean being shabby, right? But I just want to touch this thing that you said about was that you what was the word? I think you said lonely. You felt lonely or felt out of place. Was it only the
Yeah, I felt out of place. Of course I did.
no? I'm sorry, I'm missing the word that you used. That you lonely is something along those lines. But was it only the dressing that made you feel out of place, or was it also maybe um, the spiritual journey you were going through, or I don't know, different city you're going through, or was it only the
I
clothes?
think I think it was like I feel like the clothes aspect was probably just like it wasn't a very significant part of it. I think the more significant part, like you said, is the fact that there was obviously a life I had in Karachi, and then I left that life and went to Lahore. And you have to build an entire social circle. Your life from high school is very like high school life, especially in Pakistan, is very like micromanaged by your parents, by your school or whatever. And then you get this sort of freedom when you go to university where you have to figure everything out on your own. And it was tough initially to find my place, not just in LUMS but also mentally find my place in terms of uh just build a routine, build a life there. So that
But mashallah, not
it was
spiritually, yeah. There was no spiritual confusion or spiritual out of place or that's the word, purpose in life out of place thing. Huh? It
I
was
think
just
I
what
think
is what the usual
Alhamdulillah
student
with the
faces.
I think Alhamdulillah with I think this spiritual aspect, not to say that it was easy for me to maintain the same spiritual I wouldn't say connection, but the same efforts. It was obviously really difficult in LUMS to be able to do that because you had these so many things to deal with. But I never felt confused or never felt
Hmm.
misdirected spiritually, because alhamdulillah, as you know, it's really easy to talk to Hazrat. It's really easy to speak, to be in touch with Hazrat. So I would just, whenever I would feel of a sort of way, I would message him. I would ask for time to
Hmm.
talk to him. The first time it was really hard to be away from Hazrat, because like the first 2 3 years of me being Beth, I was like, there was a point where I was going to Khanka daily for like over 6 months. So from there to not seeing Hazrat for 3 months was tough. And I remember the first time I went back, after 3 months, and I went to see him. I hugged him and I cried, and I could see a little tear in his eye too, and it felt really nice because I felt like, first I was like, "Yo, oh, I'm missing Hazrat," but when I met him and I saw that little tear in his eye, I realized that he was sort of missing me too, which was great to hear. So like, just the reason I'm sharing this is because it's just a testament to how much
Mm.
he loves us and how available he always is to deal with our problems. So, like from a spiritual
Because like
perspective, we never
our
felt
Sheikh is
out of
our
place.
Rouhani father, right? Like in a way, even closer to
Yeah,
us than our blood father, right? And
yeah,
that's I think that story is testament to that relationship, the closeness of that relationship. Masala, so you were so no FOMO, okay, no even desire to be part of the more frayed fabric of worldly life at LUMS. And if there was ever a temptation or something, you would immediately reach out to Sheikh Saad. And this shows a lot of comfort level, which I think Salikin perhaps struggle with a little bit, right?
yeah,
uh, Even older, more mature persons, or maybe because they're older, more mature, but let alone a younger
yeah. I
person, right?
was
But
young and
mashallah, you,
stupid, so it's fine.
huh?
I was young and stupid, so it's okay.
Well, work in your favor, man. If only you were young and stupid is also fine. You just as long as you were young and coming, as you reminded me. Thank
Yeah,
you again. I'll never forget this. But yeah, and okay, and mashallah. So you're talking about sohbat, right? You're at LUMS. So, what was your routine like in the sense that, yeah, what was your routine like? So, again, with all seriousness, you performed really well in your studies, right? And I'm sure IQ is part of it, genetics play a part of it, but I'm sure, and I hope the larger part of it was your habits and your activities and your efforts, right? Which Sheikh Saab emphasizes 99.999%, right? That a
yeah,
Madhazad Ali is maybe born in
yeah,
1,000, but everyone makes that effort, right? You have to make that
yeah,
effort. So in I don't want to say in this case because this is also a religious duty. It's a religious duty, I think, of a student to study well, right? Allah has given this
yeah,
opportunity, and you want to study well so that you may, for the sake of Islam, build this knowledge, right? Use this knowledge that
yeah.
you build upon. So, could you maybe just talk a bit about your study habits? Would you wake up after Fajr and then get straight hit the books? And so, what was it like? But, in all seriousness, what was that like?
Funny story. Just so I want to hint on 2 points. First is you said waking up after Fajr. I always intended to wake up after Fajr. In fact, the way I tried to get myself to do it is I took an 8 a.m. class. And I was like, अब 8 a.m. class है तो अब तो फजर में उठना ही पड़ेगा to get to the class. But I dropped the class within a week because I could never wake up for it. And
It
when
was
I
too
got to the
sadistic,
class,
huh?
yeah, I was just sleeping in class, so it was a bad decision anyway. So yeah, for the Fajr thing is probably not for me. Uh, and then the other thing, like about your point on FOMO and not being distracted by other things at lumps, there are distractions, and that's true, and it's a reality to deal with. And this is not to say that I've never been distracted or I've never sort of faltered away from just like focus, focus, focus. But I think the one thing that's really helped is I think these distractions take a hold of you when you're idle, but when you're focused and busy and when you occupy yourself with a lot of things, then you don't really have time for it. Like for me, it was like if I had to if there was something that I was invited to, I would feel like, hey, okay, it's gonna take like 3 hours, 4 hours of my day if I go there, spend time with my friends. So I would just because I was so busy with not just studies, but with the extracurriculars and, with stuff like I was doing research, I was studying on my own. When I was doing all of those things, it was, I was just too busy to actually really care about all of those things. And I felt as if they were taking away from what I had prioritized. So once you get in that motion of just keeping yourself busy and setting priorities and setting goals that you want to achieve, um, it, these distractions actually feel like distractions and not as
Mm.
temptations. So,
It's
if
like
you're
when you start
idle, then
eating
they're
good food,
temptation.
when you're eating good food, then junk food seems like actually junk food, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, junk food seems like a temptation. So like it
Mm.
doesn't it becomes a when you're doing something positive, then these negative things actually feel negative. And if you're idle, then
Becoming
they
more
just
sharp relief. Yeah, word on the street is that yeah, you were really busy, but you were busy disciplining also. So I have it on good authority. So if you could maybe
that.
shed some light on that, like where were these
Yeah,
sojourns that you
I
went off to? I'm being serious. I want to know. We want to know. The crowd wants to know.
I feel like those sojourns that this authority has told you about is me sleeping and not picking up his phone. So it's probably not me going on journeys. But like, yeah, I would go to on I had a routine on Saturdays. Like this was I would do this every Saturday is like um around Maghrib, I would leave for Data Darbar, which is the mazar shrine of Hazrat Ali Hajweri, Rahmatullah alayh, and he is one of the most eminent Sufi saints of the subcontinent. And it would just be my way of de-stressing. Like I would go there, I would spend like an hour there just doing zikr, just relaxing. Sometimes I wouldn't even do zikr. Sometimes I would just sit there. It just felt so peaceful spending time there. And then once I was done from there, I would come out of that other bar and I would take a rickshaw and I would go to this place called Varis Nihari in Anarkali and I'd have Nihari. And then from there, I would go have Doodh Jalebi. And as you can see, it
Do you have someone over
it
with you
was
also?
I was really consistent with it.
Yeah, do you have someone over with you also? Promising to promise a treat? We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Yeah, but no, definitely. It's mashallah. It's so interesting. I'd like to touch on this aspect of going to the mazar, but
Yeah,
it was very interesting where you talk about to unwind, to relax. You would go do your zikr at the shrine, right? And I find it very
yeah,
interesting. Like I was reading, like this lightness of feeling when you go to these places, this luminosity,
yeah,
right? That is at these places. I was reading the autobiography of Arundhati Roy. She's one of my favorite authors. I really love the way
yeah,
she writes her spoken written word. And she was talking about how I think it was Delhi, and I'm forgetting the Buzurg's name, right? But it's so interesting that Arundhati Roy, to the best of my knowledge, doesn't believe in a higher power or religion as such, definitely. But she was living next to this. I'm really forgetting. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the Buzurg's name, the Sheikh's name, but a really big Wali of Allah, Sheikh Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. I'm sure if I said the name, everyone will recognize. But it's so interesting that despite not believing everything, she was living in an apartment right next to the shrine. And even I
hmm,
think the word she used was the luminosity of that place. Like even she could feel that, right? And um, I remember Sheikh Saab telling us about Hazrat Qadi Shabir Saab, Rahmatullah alayh, right? About how even a Hindu or a Sikh or a non-Muslim person going to a shrine benefits
yeah,
from that thing, right? And I'm sure what she was talking about, what she could not put words to, but her soul could feel, was this luminosity, right? And it's so interesting that, mashallah, um, for your unwinding and relaxing. People go use maybe narcotics and all sorts of, not even so severe even like they could go for sports even, and one should definitely
yeah,
do that. But mashallah, mashallah, for you the unwinding was um, going to this place, right? And that was a regular ritual of yours, and I'm sure a major component of also what I wouldn't say fill the gap for you for Sheikh Saab, but complemented
yeah,
the lack of presence, right?
yeah.
These buzurgs. So, mashallah, great to hear. And top off with the amazing food street experience. So, just can you tell me
Mhm.
like a Salik who or a non-Salik person, a person who's saying like, wow, you're going to shrines, like that's and I'm not even sure it did that, but but that sounds so na'uzubillah,
Yeah,
outlandish in a way. Like, how would you respond to such a person? Did anyone ask you where you disappearing off to? Did you ever reveal
yeah.
that I'm going to this place? Did it ever stimulate conversations around this with your peers?
Yeah, first I want to complete my thought about the routine, and then I'll answer this bit about this shrine thing being a bit odd. I think in terms of routine also, uh, it was just it was just consist like having some sort of consistency in your study habits that really helps you that really helps you keep chipping away at your workload. And also I think one thing that people sort of do is they for me at least, in my third or fourth year I actually got bad grades in the easier courses. And the reason I got bad grades in easier courses was because I just never felt like challenged by them. So I didn't really pay attention in class. I didn't really do the work. And I got good grades in the courses that were really challenging because, I sort of it was like a challenge for me to try to do well on those courses. So one thing that really helped me in LUMS, I don't know if it's going to help other people, but one thing that really helped me is I kept challenging myself every semester to do something that was more difficult, to take a course that people didn't take because the instructor was scary or the course seemed scary, and I'd make that my focus. And it would really push me to, because I mean, like, I remember I was crazy, and in my second year at LUMS, uh I wanted to take a 400 level course, and the way LUMS works is you can't take 400 level courses unless you're in your junior year. So I went to a professor and I said, "Hey, I want to take your course." And he's like, "Hey, dude, you're a sophomore. You can't take my course." And I'm like, "No, I really want to take it." And I've done, I'm interested in the course content, and it's fine. He's like, "You're not gonna get a good grade." I'm like, "I don't care. It's fine. I'm just gonna try." So I really could. So he had to force enroll me because the system didn't allow for a sophomore to take a 400 level course. And I remember one of the first readings was this 10-15 page reading by Foucault. And I was like, before I started that reading, I was like, hey, it's going to take like, half an hour. And I
Oh
remember I was
God.
two hours into the first page and it absolutely made zero sense.
Was it about prisoners in Paris?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That
it
was
was
it.
that
Oh
one.
my God.
Yeah, I don't even remember
Okay.
what I studied at that time. But the reason for bringing that up is I think because I was really pushing myself, um, it became a challenge and it became exciting. Instead of just being boring studies, it just became super exciting. To do a 400 level course as a sophomore, it seemed cool also because I was like, hey, I'm in this class and they're all seniors.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. So, using challenges and pushing yourself to the boundaries to stimulate you to actually work harder, huh?
Yeah, because it really
And
helps, and I think beyond just your studies, I think even in your professional life, even in your spiritual life, maybe just like pushing boundaries makes it exciting. And as humans, we want excitement and we want that sort of dopamine kick to be able to really push ourselves. So, I mean, top athletes do this, right? They push themselves to the limit. They set these targets and goals that seem seemingly unachievable, but the reason they do it is because it acts as a motivator. And if you're aiming for 100 and you fail, you're going to hit 90. But if you're aiming for 10, the max you can get is 10. So the entire idea, and I have no idea why this, I think actually part of it was also Sheikh's Hub. Because I remember in my second semester, no, in my first semester, um, I remember I got a 3.93 or something like that. And I got really happy and I was like, oh, I'm going to message Sheikh Saab and tell him I got a 3.93. And I messaged him and he's like, why don't you get a 4? So, um, because he said that, like, he was probably that impetus to push me because I felt sad. I felt really satisfied. I'm like, oh, मेरा 3.93 आ गया. शेख साहब बोलेंगे बेटा, well done. घर आओ तो मैं मिठाई खिलाऊं. But he's like, why don't you get a 4? And no, not to say that he demotivated me or he didn't say I did a good job, but he sort of pushed me to do even better, because he knew I could do it. So I think one thing that really helps, and it's kind of unconventional because you would say, hey, it's already this difficult journey you're in, so why make it more difficult? But I think when you really push yourselves, that's when you start growing as an individual, and you start growing in capacity in whatever like whatever workspace that is. It doesn't have to be just your professional space. It could be your spiritual space, your personal space, your health, whatever. When you start pushing yourself, you start growing, and then B, what it really helps do is like it helps make everything exciting because you're kind of building up to it. So I think that really helped me in LUMS to do well. And sorry I digressed. from what
No,
we
no, this
spoke
is
about.
exactly it. I'm just wondering, like, what are the points where you start you start feeling like you're hitting your limits? There's a danger of burnout. Like, was there also some mechanism you would have? Did you ever touch those limits, or did you just feel like you were growing, growing, growing?
I feel like, there were definitely times where I felt that I was in over my head. Like I told you, I was reading this Foucault 15-page reading that was part of three other readings that I had to do for that course, and I was 3 hours into the first page. So, I felt I felt like, oh, I
It
had a
wasn't
feeling I
you, it
would
was him, but sure.
I feel like I failed that class and failed that semester. But वही बात है कि when you're in that situation, there's two things, and then I mean, I'm sorry, Saad bhai, but all of my learnings come from Sheikh Saab. So whenever I have something like this, Sheikh Saab always sends. Whenever I feel in over my head, and I talk to Sheikh Saab, he sends me the same message. He's been sending it for at least 10 years, which is when the going gets tough, the tough get
The tough
going.
get going, yeah.
He sends it to everyone, I think. But वही बात है कि वो I feel like that
I'm,
those
so,
are
I'm
the
sorry, I'm cutting
times.
you over here. No, no, no. It's not to everyone. I was just thinking, it came to my mind also that the sheikh and a good mentor, uh,
Yeah,
he will impart advice based on the person in front of them, right?
yeah,
So my sheikh knows me. He knows I'm a softie, I'm guessing. So, like I've definitely seen a different, and with
yeah,
every salik of his,
yeah,
salika, he'll fine tune the advice according to the requirement. Not to say that, so with me, he did use, when the tough got this quote,
yeah,
which is, and it was regarding starting the bayans or something thereof. And alhamdulillah, now I look, I will look at what a long way I've come in the bayans and the settings. And when I started, like I didn't know what to speak about, I was very self-conscious.
yeah.
What do I say now? Like I'm going to start running out of topics. And now I can't stop. I have to stop myself. Like I planned 30
MashaAllah,
minutes and
MashaAllah.
I go on to 45 minutes, 1 hour, my mouth is dry, but it's just going on, right? But just with that one word, and your sheikh is motivating you, and
Yeah,
even if you're not consciously thinking of it, a person like me at least, your sheikh always is consciously thinking of you, and his tawajjuhat and his
yeah,
focus is on every saluk of his, right?
yeah,
So, but mashallah, coming back to what you're saying, that sheikhs are very motivated you to push your limits, right?
yeah,
And mashallah, you didn't hit them, but if there was some boundary you reached, maybe you pull back a little and then you just
yeah.
searched forward, right?
And also, it's okay to. I mean, I feel like we have this. A lot of
Mm.
it is associated with our ego. I feel like we have this giant fear of failing that once you do end up failing, you realize that it's no big deal. Like it feels really difficult to fail, and it is difficult in the start once you fail. But I feel like most times in our lives are not as high stakes as we think they are. And most times failures do not have those catastrophic results that we think they have. So, I mean, even if you do fail, it's fine. I mean, the world's not going to end. Everything that there's going to be another tomorrow, even if you fail. So, why
Yes, why
waste?
I'm sorry, the reason I'm mentioning also because it's coming to my mind like this current day and age of the hustle culture, right?
Yeah,
The worldly approach to this is the hustle culture. And the Islamic way is the Islamic way, right? Not the Islamic hustle culture, but to
yeah,
strive really hard, to your boundaries, have faith in Allah. So I'm just trying to contrast these two because it's big, right? I sometimes succumb to the hustle culture. You just keep working, working, working.
yeah,
And I'm just wondering, like, because we want to emulate the Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and our Sheikh is the current, you know, the person who guides us to emulate the Sunnah, right? And working hard is part of it. So I am just contrasting that, working hard the Islamic way versus working hard the worldly way, right? And it's become this huge thing, this hustle culture. You're seeing burnout. You're seeing
yeah,
people just single-mindedly following something. I'm sure a lot of your peers faced burnout during their study time, right? I mean, they were
yeah,
doing the
yeah,
same thing as you, but they were not burning out. You were not burning out, and they were, right? And what's the contrast over here that you think? And it seems to be, it's definitely so. Having a sheikh, the sohbat of the sheikh, the guidance of the sheikh, the sohbat of good people around you, spending your spare time with the giants of spirituality going to their current abodes. And I'm just trying to say that there is a lot that hardworking students can learn from the Islamic way, in that case, embodied by you and your practices, right? Motivated by your sheikh.
I think I wouldn't call it the Islamic way because I think I'm far from it. But the one thing I will say is, look, this is what the Sunnah teaches us, and this is what our Shaykh teaches us, is that everything needs to have a balance. Um, and part of that balance is making sure that there's a steam off period. Um, but that steam off period has to be a conscious effort to actually um, to de-stress and to recoup. It can't just be doing nothing, because doing nothing
Mm,
oftentimes doesn't really benefit as much as actively planning how you want to de-stress and how you want to
mm.
recover. So,
That's a great point, actually. So consciously thinking about your free time, even, right? Versus
yeah,
the even
yeah,
negative one, what's become much more just doom scrolling the whole day, right? So you got
yeah.
like
And it
actively
doesn't
planning
work.
your day.
It
Gee.
does the opposite. Like doom scrolling the whole day does, or doom scrolling even for 2 hours doesn't help you de-stress. It seems like it does. वो immediate आपको feeling आती है कि it's getting better, and you're zoning out or something. And I'm a victim of this too. I'm not saying I'm not, I don't do these things, but
Hmm.
if you actively plan how to sort of recover from whatever you're doing which is causing burnout, then you're in a much better position to be back in the ring the next day. So, just if I mean, if you enjoy something, do stuff that you enjoy. It doesn't mean that I don't enjoy exercising, so I don't exercise. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other ways. Not saying that it's a good thing not to exercise and be like this, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other ways to de-stress. Like I
Hmm.
can go out with my friends, I can spend time with, reading a book, I can take a walk, I can, play PlayStation, not doom scroll, not just do something
Hmm.
that causes being more brain dead. So
Any
I
good
think,
books recently that you
sorry,
managed to read? Any good books recently, or the last one
yeah,
that you read that you?
there's a book that I'm reading right now called Making Evil by Julia Shaw. And
Hmm.
it's about, I haven't finished it, so I don't know if I want to summarize it, but it's about the science behind different sorts of evil. So, like, they're trying to sort of deconstruct um, Hitler's brain, deconstruct the brains of pedophiles, and figure out basically what makes a social and neurological conditioning potentially cause these situations. But उसमें भी एक interesting चीज थी that I read is um, they did an empathy exercise, and they said, imagine, so think about someone like Ted Bundy or someone like Hitler who um, has been labeled as a psychopath, as a murderer. And the way we approach it is that we don't excuse any of their actions. We don't think of why they committed certain action. We just put a label on them and sort of ostracize them from society. And now think about the worst thing you've done, and something that you deeply regret, something that you don't want to share with anyone, something that would embarrass you in society. The first thing that you do is you find justifications, reasons, excuses for that action, and but you don't do the same for someone else. So again, her point was not to say that this person, or someone who did something bad should be excused, but to say that we don't apply the same standards on other people as we do to ourselves. is अगर हमने कोई ऐसी खराब चीज़, बहुत heinous चीज़ की है, तो immediately we will start justifying it, explaining it away, and not making that action our identity. Even though अगर कोई, again, not to say that pedophilia or murder is something that is excusable, but किसी ने अगर इस तरीके का एक्शन कमिट किया तो हम उसकी पूरी आइडेंटिटी वही बना लेते हैं. बट हमने अगर फॉर एग्जांपल चोरी की है, या हमने फॉर एग्जांपल कोई ऐसा काम किया है, तो वी वुडंट वांट कि वी जस्ट आवर पर्सनालिटी गेट्स डिफाइंड बाय दैट वन लेबल. So I found that super interesting
Yeah,
in
really
that book.
interesting. So, just on empathy, also, I feel that again, being on this path, empathy is something also that really comes to you, making excuses for someone
Yeah.
else's fault. Did you notice this change in yourself? Um, covering for others, like chalo, it's okay, and generally understanding where that person is coming from.
I think not directly in the sense that it wasn't a direct result of just feeling empathy for other people or just understanding where they're coming from. I think it was a byproduct of the more time I spent in the suluk, the easier it was for me not to think or behave reactively. And I feel like a
Mm.
lot of the times the reason we judge someone else or we blame someone else or we exhibit or feel anger towards someone else is because it is a knee-jerk emotional reaction, and it's out of our control, that emotional reaction. And usually when you spend more time in the suluk, when you spend more time doing zikr in the sohbat of your sheikh, you have more control over these emotional reactions. And when you have more control over these emotional reactions, then you think rationally, and actually making understanding where someone's coming from is, yes, an exercise in empathy, but sometimes even it's just an exercise in rationality. Like, if you see someone who is sweaty
Mm.
and who's having a bad day, if they're reacting badly, then it's just logical to think that this is what this person's like. It's just because they're having a bad day. So it takes the sting out of those emotional reactions, so you're able to sort of subdue them and actually think with your brain and not with your emotions.
It's so interesting. So this book you're making people by Julia Shaw. What you're basically saying is she's approaching it from a neurological perspective, right? And what seems to be
Yeah,
the case is that through our suluk, those neurological changes are actually happening, right? So the actual
yeah,
practice of एक तो one thing is just reading about it, and one thing is actually implementing it. Okay, that just came to my mind. Also, very interested over this segue. Just coming back, one final thing I just want to touch on LUMS and. Um, I don't want to broach this topic, but perhaps a little bit about how you dealt with generally negative situations or negative teachings where you saw somebody who's teaching something that is genuinely negative, anti-religion even, right? And people in universities are facing this, right? You are
yeah,
bombarded by this cacophony of doubtful, dubious, but it seems deliciously new and retrograde um, material, right? Where you're like,
yeah.
wow, okay, this is also there. And you start thinking. So, how did you protect yourself from that? Were there times where you maybe started doubting? And how did you deal with that basically? Because university is a fertile
Yeah.
ground for these things, right?
um there were times where I sort of fell into the trap. Not to say that I was completely secure from it, and because, like you said, they're generally negative teachings if you look at it objectively, but they're shrouded in a lot of hey, this is ये human rights हैं या ये लोगों के हुकूक हैं या right to freedom of speech है and these things. But in reality, they're actually restrictions of speech or restrictions of people's rights, but they're shrouded in a completely different way. And there have been times where I fell victim to it. But I think wahi baat, and again, it all goes back to Sheikh Saab for me in probably every aspect of my life, is when you have someone who has more understanding and vision of these things than you do, then it's very easy to navigate out of these situations, because then these individuals can identify stuff that you can't see, just because of your naivety, just because of the fact that you're probably experiencing these things for the first time. They're able to identify where you're falling into a trap that is going to be harmful for you. So for me at least, because I'm kind of a gullible person, and I really easily fall into these notions of, oh, ये तो बड़ा अच्छा काम कर रहा हूँ मैं, क्योंकि किसी ने मुझे बुद्धू बना के बोल दिया कि अच्छा काम है. um, for me, it's always been like the danda of Sheikh Saab, who has told me, this guy is making a fool out of you, or this guy is using you, or, actually, in this situation, this is the end goal. This is what they want to achieve, and they're just shrouding it in a lot of positivity. So I think, not to say, and the only times where I have felt victim to this is where I have not communicated it with my sheikh. So when I have, for some reason or the other, not told him, not discussed it with him, hid it from him deliberately because, I didn't want to get,
You might
I
not want
was,
to hear the answer. Mhm.
yeah, like I don't wanna get scolded.
Oh,
Which is, and it's always worked against my favor. उसी से मुझे नुकसान हुए हैं. और जब मैंने उसके बाद भी, but our sheikh is um so kind and so generous and so gracious that even after you mess up massively and you go to him, he might scold you, but then he'll also tell you how to get out of that situation. So
mm.
I'm sorry, but I don't have a magic bullet. I don't have a silver bullet to get out of these things. No cool psychological trick for
There
me.
is
It's
a
all
silver
about
bullet.
him.
You just said it, Sheikh Sahib. That's I tell
Yeah,
everyone,
yeah,
what's the
that's
silver
it. I
bullet?
mean, like, अब मैं अपना दिमाग नहीं है मैं कोई. It's not. Yeah, the silver bullet is, yeah, you're right. I guess the silver bullet is just going to my shade.
So that's all, mashallah. It's very interesting. So okay, yeah. So you are facing these with these negative situations, these teachers who are sprouting extreme negativity but crouching it in positivity. Speaking of uh, negativity, that should perhaps be looked with positivity
Yeah.
is this job search, right?
Hmm.
You're graduating, and now from what I hear, it's becoming much tougher. Extreme anxiety. I was seeing somewhere where there was this Chinese student. He got like 700 out of 750 in his Goku or some exam that they have,
Yeah.
and he went to like Tsinghua and Beijing University for engineering and Oxford for something. He's riding a that delivery bike because there's no jobs right now, right, in China. And even Isalik was telling me in Pakistan also about how students are like so flustered and frustrated. And I'm seeing myself also getting CVs from students like, please do something.
Yeah.
But so do you have any advice? And again, perhaps lacing with the fact that mashallah, you turned out of university with an amazing job, right?
Yeah.
So someone could say, hey man, easy for you to say, you were at a premier institution. What do you know about the troubles that a student is facing, right? So just if you could just keep that context in mind also when you try to respond, that how do you deal with anxiety and the worries of jumping from this cocooned environment. School, like you said, is like everything is set out for you carefully. The university, okay, fine, it's much more free, but still it's like a cocoon environment. And now you're going out into the big bad world that's out there. You're clueless,
Yeah.
you're young, you think you know a lot, but you don't actually, right? So what would you say to such a person who's struggling with job search and then their sense of self-worth, and everything that goes with it?
Y- Look, I think you're partly right in the sense that someone like me may not be able to comment uh on this feeling, this anxiety about the job search, because I was lucky enough to have a job a year before I graduated because my company offered me a job after my internship. So like my final year, I didn't go through that anxiety of trying to look for a job and trying to hunt and everything. Um, but I think, uh, and also I have to sort of go back to when I started at LUMS to be able to explain this better. Is So I joined LUMS with the intention of going to the business school, and they didn't give me admission into the business school. They gave me admission into this humanities school. So, and the entire idea was, okay, if you can achieve a certain GPA by the end of your first year, then you can switch, because the business school is more competitive. So while I got that GPA, when I was in when I was in the humanities school, I took some political science courses and really enjoyed those. And I just had a lot of fun in those courses, even though I wasn't the sort of person who really enjoyed politics and stuff like that before I went to LUMS. And I spoke to Sheikh Saab and I said, hey, I'm really enjoying these political science courses, but I have the GPA to go to the business school. And he said, do what you enjoy, because if you're doing what you enjoy, then you'll excel at it. And if you're doing something just for the sake of getting a job, then you're never going to excel at it. So I think the better way to approach these things is to start off as soon as you can, to approach stuff that you are passionate about, because if it is stuff that you are passionate about, then you will continue to push yourselves and excel in those areas. And when you achieve that level of excellence, then it will be the other way around, where you're not going to be searching for a job, but people who need you, who need that excellence and that drive and that passion, will be looking for you. And inshallah, you'll have multiple jobs lined up, uh, and then you'll be able to choose. एक हद तक देखिए, रिस्क तो अल्लाह के हाथ में है. It is not in your control, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran that he is the one who provides, and he provides the risk. So it is not in your control uh, at all, but you can also try your best to put yourself into the best possible position to get a good job out of university. And then feeling this anxiety and negativity, and feeling this, like, you know, this rat race only feeds more self doubt, only feeds more anxiety, only feeds more negativity, which actually affects the process instead of helping it. So, I mean, the advice I would give to someone who is dealing with this sort of situation is, um, try to achieve excellence, try to do something that you're passionate about, go into a field that you really, really feel about and feel deeply about, because only in those situations will you reach new boundaries, will you be a star. Because if you're doing run of the mill stuff that you're not really passionate about, then you'll only do the bare minimum. Then you won't be thinking about it at night. You won't be thinking about it before you sleep, or you won't be thinking about it the first thought when you wake up, because you're not passionate about it. You're doing it because you need to do it. And if you're passionate about it, it's going to drive you to do better in those situations. And then आप जब excellence achieve कर लेते हो, then this part becomes the easy part, because then you're in that position where people are seeking you. So yeah, one thing obviously would be this being passionate
Mhm.
about it. The second would be knowing that at the end of the day, it's not in your hands. And then third, knowing that your brain, your cognitive energy is limited. You have a limited number of what I like to call brain points, and it is up to you where you dedicate those brain points. If you dedicate them into negative thinking, into thinking about, oh, what if I don't get a job? I'll be a failure. I won't have a job. I won't make money. Then you're using that limited resource in something unproductive. It is better to just take those resources and apply them and actually excelling, improving your resume, improving your CV, finding more places to find a job. And I feel like if you're skilled and capable, even if you don't have a good enough job, you'll find some way to make money.
Yeah, absolutely. So our Shaykh teaches us that put your best effort and Allah will reward you for it. And know also that it's that best effort because Allah is telling you to make that best effort, right?
Yeah.
But I just want to touch on the second part about Allah doing it because if I look at my this thing, so I came back from Netherlands. I look
Yeah.
at my CV right now that I handed into Engro and I can't believe they hired me. Okay. And I'm saying also this is kind of the colonized mindset that, oh, you're from Netherlands, so they were probably like, he's probably good. I had zero experience. But I'm just touching on this point, and also I just want to touch on Sheikh Saab's guidance also in this process, right? I'm sure you also had Sheikh Saab's guidance selecting the career, which path, yes, no, this choices you made a few years down the line. Sheikh Saab said that no, just now you got to
Yeah.
pivot, right? So I'm saying this because yes, I came CV-less, and for a whole year I wasn't planning to move back to Pakistan, but then Alhamdulillah with Sheikh Saab sohbat and him telling that Rizq is written, where it's written you'll get it right. And I
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, the luckiest day of my life becoming back to Sheikh Saab, and then things are already falling in place. But I'm just saying this thing about Allah can do anything, you know. And I
Mm.
don't mean facetiously. I know people are struggling,
No.
and I know it's not something you can understand mentally. And I didn't understand it at that time. You know, a strong person who is in touch with Allah will understand it with his heart. But a person like me, who just believes in these things or doesn't believe in these things because he's thinking about it from a mental perspective. But I look at my situation and I got this job in the most amazing company and it was a parchi
Yeah.
also. Yeah, so, but then
Hmm.
Alhamdulillah, so I'm just saying, Allah created the conditions, right? It like so many times in my life, I Allah just created the conditions where I had no expectations, no hope, no outlet. Things were really coming to a situation where things were going to fall apart financially, and Allah created something that was manifold better, right? Just trying to say that uh, this thing about working hard definitely there, but Allah is ultimately the ultimate arbiter, and I wonder if people put enough stock in that. If they try to infuse their hard work um, with that, I'm working hard, but inshallah, Allah will get me there, right? So I'm wondering how much people do that, and what I see around me is I think people don't do that, right? And they sell themselves enormously short, right? And then that's maybe also part of the reason why they don't get it. And then I worked really hard and I advanced.
Yeah.
And even before that, just talk about having a sheikh's guidance, even in your job search. I remember I had three job offers. One was so after having a drought of jobs.
I remember you told me, yeah.
Yeah, there was SDPI, there
Yeah.
was as a newscaster in Express News, and I aced that interview. I did really well. You know, like I was like a
Yeah, you'd be a good
natural, and
newscaster.
I look like I'm a newscaster. And the third one was Anglo, right? And I'm like, when I put Sheikh Saab about newscaster, Sheikh Saab, he has his way of saying like this, like this. He's like, oh, bhai, even the police gives
Yeah.
money to, to the news walas. But everyone was telling me,
Yeah.
and I was telling myself, that good. I used to come in advertisements before, it was
Yeah.
that background driving me, and everyone's like amazed if you show up on TV, and we know you, and everyone's telling that there's huge scope in it, man. You gotta go. And now, of course, just a few years they were bankrupt, salaries paid late, and that's the least worst part, right? Just the whole environment of that place is so toxic,
Yeah.
everything from Bat Nazari to the environment and how you have to lie. And basically, it's not news. You're actually just spreading gossip. You know what it is, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, just 2 points, which I'm hoping you can comment on maybe also in your own experience. Number one, a shape guiding you through making missteps, right? Through your career choices. And ultimately, genuinely, Allah being Allah can really do anything, and I'm living proof of
Yeah.
that. I'm the hujjat of that. There was nothing Allah gave me, like you understand what I'm trying to say. Stuff I can't believe. But sometimes even I'm scratching my head. I'm like, how did I get here? Allah, but when I landed in Riyadh the first day,
Yeah.
it was a Friday, and I was just walking to a mosque. I was like, Allah, you brought me
Mecca.
here. Amazing. You actually brought me here. You're right. So if you
Yeah.
just touch on these two points about your own experience.
Yeah. So on the second point about Allah being able to do anything, there's one story I want to tell you as well is the first job I got out of university. Basically, I was on exchange program and the third year, and usually what happens is a lot of the internships you get that give you jobs are internships that you get in your final summer, which is the summer of your junior year. And because I was on exchange, I couldn't apply to any of those because we're like in-person interviews or वो सब होते हैं. So I didn't apply to them. And I came back to Karachi, and I didn't have an internship lined up for the summer. And a friend randomly shared something that a job in like an internship posting, and I applied just because I was like अब तो कोई और option है नहीं, यही करना पड़ेगा. And I didn't know a lot about this organization, and I I I went to the company, I did an internship, and then after the internship, eventually they offered me a job. And then quite later on, when I spoke with my boss, and I was like, hey, it's like this is how I got the internship. I didn't really plan to do it. She was like, hey, I was planning on selecting someone else instead of you, but I don't know why I chose to select you. So it was like just this entire process के मैंने इस internship के लिए apply भी ऐसे किया because I didn't have a choice. She probably hired me because she didn't have a choice. And that's how I ended up in my first job.
No, but
So
I would say a cynical person would probably say, "Oh no, it was fate. It was just
yeah,
whatever." But I think a believer would say that there's your proof. Allah put.
yeah,
It sounds so simplistic, simple, but
yeah.
it is just that, right?
It is that, and I feel like I'll tell you why people don't put stock in it because it's a chicken and egg thing. Uh, the belief has to come before you actually see it. मैंने अपनी ज़िंदगी में ये देखा है कि you have to believe, first you have to trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and once you trust Allah, then you will see his actions, you will see him taking control. हमारा प्रॉब्लम ये होता है हम बोलते हैं पहले हम प्रूफ देखें कि अल्लाह कर सकता है फिर हम अल्लाह पे यकीन करेंगे तो unfortunately that's not how it's structured. I think the proof is in the fact that no matter how many guna that we do, the zameen does not, the floor does not eat us up, and we're not doing anything to earn the air that we're breathing. We're not doing anything to keep our heart beating. We're not doing anything to be able to speak, to listen, to see. So the miracles exist everywhere. It's just that we're unable to see them because they've become so ordinary for us. So
Hmm.
you have to believe first before Allah shows you, and then Allah will show you because He loves you more than the love of 70 mothers, and He wants the best for you. तो पहले यकीन करना पड़ेगा. But just going to the point of trusting or having a shake in the search of a career, I feel like the fact that I don't I'm not a very a visionary person or not a very smart person has always worked in my favor because I have just completely ceded decision making to Hazrat. I don't give him, like, it's just that I just let him decide. And that's not because of this I don't think it's because of this extreme trust in my शेख के मैं इतना परफेक्ट हूँ कि मैं वो लाश की तरह हूँ जो शेख के सामने मैयत है और शेख जैसे उसको घुमाए वैसे I just think it's so easy. It's such a hack that
Yeah, the
instead
silver
of
bullet,
trying,
right?
yeah,
In
like you
fact,
don't have to think.
Sheikh Saab says that you have to ask your Sheikh for everything except your yellow, if you wear yellow sock or black sock. And I'm like, oh
Yeah,
man,
so that
I was telling you, like, Sheikh Saab, kaun sa jawab dene mein?
it's so easy because then it's also because then he's responsible, right? Like if you mess up, if something goes wrong, you can say, hey Sheikh Saab, you told me to do this. Now this has happened, and so it's so
Even God wise, what to wear. Like I look at my Sheikh, and I remember you saying that on Eid, he wore this beautiful
yeah,
white. This thing was trying to take the
yeah,
thing from you. So our Sheikh
yeah,
even tells us how to dress in such a eminent way,
yeah,
right? So absolutely, absolutely, like the hack, the silver bullet, the cheat code, the one-stop shop,
yeah,
the just the final solution, excuse the expression, it's
yeah.
with your sheikh, right? And even in job search, I tell you honestly, everything I've gotten, I'm telling you, is because of my sheikh. It's because of
Yeah,
the sheikh. Like it's just because Allah loves our sheikh,
yeah.
and dost hota hai, friend of a friend is a friend. So I
And
honestly
then
think
beyond
everything I
that,
get in my life is from my sheikh. This house I'm
I
sitting
think
in,
Saad,
sheikh.
yeah,
Hmm.
Saad bhai, I think, sorry for interrupting you, but I think I'm sure some people will listen to this and go like, ये दो पागल बात कर रहे हैं कि ये क्या यार
It
ये
sounds
कुछ कल
cultish,
कल
right? Like,
yeah,
how
like,
can you be so?
but the only thing I would say to them is try it.
Get right. Yeah, got nothing to
Yeah, just
lose.
try it and see
Just
if
go
it
for
doesn't
it.
work, then just try to listen. Go do bath with the sheikh with the right niyat, with the niyat of actually finding.
Yeah,
Don't go
don't
to
even
test
do
him.
that. Sheikh
Yeah,
Sahab अक्सर कहते हैं कि there's a
yeah,
majlis and people are sitting
yeah,
over there and
yeah,
the angels come. This gathering of
yeah,
where the remembrance of Allah is happening, and the angels
yeah,
come. And please just correct my this
yeah,
narrative on it. But then the angels, Allah asks, why has this person come? He's come for you. He's come for your sake. But there is a person who shows up purely for worldly reasons, and even he is or she is also. join in
Yeah.
the ranks of those people that Allah has joined. So I'm saying you don't even believe. You say you have to believe and then Allah will give to you.
Yeah.
Even without belief, like you said, Allah loves us
Yeah.
more than 70 mothers. We choose not to see it. Every day is a miracle. Every breath is a miracle. Every non-cut to the jugular vein is a miracle, right? Allah is giving to us. We just choose not to see it. And yeah, you're right. Even I would just twist what you're saying a little bit, that don't
Yeah.
even believe that
I
Shaykh
agree.
will do
I
anything, just join.